Good evening, and a very warm welcome to this evening's talk. Today's topic is 7 Steps to Peace and Contentment. We all want peace, but the constant thoughts makes our vision blind, and the search for peace is never ending. So where can I find peace? In the hills or on the beach? To explore on this topic and to answer all our questions, we have with us Brother Matthew. Welcome, Matthew. Just to give a background about Matthew, Matthew is a science graduate and a very experienced teacher and practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation based in London. My personal experience with Matthew is he's a very kind and gentle person. He's very intellectual, but at the same time, very humble. So thank you, and over to you, Matthew.
Thanks, Jyoti. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Thanks for that lovely introduction. I'm not sure I'll be able to answer all of everybody's questions, but let's see how it goes. So a pleasure to be with you all this evening. And as Jyoti said, I've been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for some 18 years now and teaching for about 17 years, teaching the meditation course primarily. We all like steps, I think, to be able to take towards something, to break it down into manageable chunks. So these 7 steps to peace and contentment, in 45 minutes, it's not possible to cover in depth all 7 steps. But really, I was thinking about the topic and, firstly to say that there's so many resources available to explore this stuff in more detail. There's so many online resources now to follow up on this. And for anyone that hasn't already done the Raj Yoga course, or maybe has, but it's always great to do it again, to be honest. There's so much in there that we can miss so much. And a lot of it's also to do with timing. So there's so many resources available online through the websites. And now some of the centers are also have or are opening up to physical programs again, which is great. So we have all these resources, but I was also thinking that, the 7 steps, when you see them, and I'm going to share them on a PowerPoint, they're not unique in their own right in terms of, if you sort of explored personal development or spirituality before, then there are a lot of similarities with what a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations are saying. But really, for me, it's the foundation of these 7 steps, which is really, really important. The foundations of Raj Yoga are very, very powerful and completely unique. I'm a reformed atheist, so I spent most of my life, certainly up until the time I was 30, very much a humanist, but very much a scientist. And I really didn't believe in God at all. I didn't really believe in spirituality or follow any religious practice. So it was a big change for me to follow a spiritual path. But, I knew that something was missing by the time I hit 30, and that science wasn't going to be able to satisfy everything in life in terms of answering questions, but just in terms of not having the experience of peace and contentment that I was hoping for, that I thought would be achieved through career success, through friends, through just living a good life and working hard. And so I started to explore spirituality. And what I loved about Raj Yoga is it's very pragmatic and in a way quite scientific in terms of you can break it down into steps and apply those steps and you can see a difference in your life. And that's really where the proof of the pudding is. In terms of when I started practicing, I very quickly started to feel more peaceful and more contented within a matter of weeks. So the key to this, as I say, is really the foundations. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint now and go through some of those aspects of the foundations of Raj Yoga. So hopefully you can see the slide. Let me know if not. So 7 steps to peace and contentment. Just looking at the foundations. So the key thing for me learning Raj Yoga was understanding my true nature as a soul. Raj Yoga teaches us that we are eternal, non-physical energy, a point of light, the soul that sits in the center of the forehead, sometimes called the third eye, pretty much in the middle of the brain. And I mean, when I first heard this, I thought, okay, interesting. I hadn't really heard anything like it before. I'd certainly never heard anybody describe the soul so succinctly and with so much clarity. So, point of energy that sits in the center of the forehead makes sense that it sits in the center of the brain because the brain is the control center for the body. You know, if you're the driver of a car, you don't sit in the boot, you sit in the driver's seat. So it made sense logically. And then there was just a simple introduction of the original qualities of the soul, which you can see here in bold. There's many other qualities, some of which I've shown in smaller text there, but the 5 main qualities of the soul. And that the soul is eternal, that very much in contrast with the body, that we never perish, the soul never dies. We've existed eternally. We go through many lifetimes of different experiences, and the journey has a very deep meaning and a very positive meaning overall. So this is hugely important to explore what it means to connect with myself as a soul, and to connect with these qualities. And I think one of the big differences with Raj Yoga is understanding that every single human being at the core of the soul has these qualities. And at the core of the soul, there is no negative characteristics. The difficulty in believing that at first is it seems to contradict the evidence we see in terms of people's behavior and our own behavior. So it seems like a bit of a leap of faith. But the concept of original sin, or whatever you want to call it, but the concept that we started off defective at some point in time and we're a mixture of good and bad, and we have to atone where there's something not right about us and we have to get better, is very much contrary to what Raj Yoga teaches us, that actually we started off completely perfect. We've started to, at some point, forget our true nature and went off track. And that's when we start to experience sorrow and we don't experience who we really are consistently. And then it's also a journey of then remembering who we are again. and moving from a state of sorrow to a state of happiness, joy, peace, love, and spiritual power. And we're very much in the world today at that transition time where it's difficult to see sometimes that life is benevolent. But actually, when we look at life and what's happening in the drama of life at the moment, it's, if you like to see it as a conscious entity, trying to wake us up by showing us in various ways that we're off track and we've moved away from these qualities and our behaviors are not serving us and not serving anyone else that we interact with either. So really just spending time exploring and reconnecting with being a soul. And what does that mean? Well, that's really what we practice in meditation in Raj Yoga, is taking time out of the day to just develop that awareness and think about simply being a point of light in the center of the forehead and simply reflecting on the qualities of the soul. So many of us start, and maybe you're already, I'm sure many of you are already on this journey, start with a simple process of reflecting on a thought such as, I am a peaceful soul, the meaning of Om Shanti. And starting with that very, very basic thought, but actually really cultivating patience to really deeply explore what that means to me, what it means to be a soul. Not just that I'm sort of sat there thinking, I'm a peaceful soul, I'm a peaceful soul, I'm a peaceful soul, like this. Obviously, that's not going to work because it's just repeating a thought, but really to go into the depths of asking myself certain questions. So what does it mean to be peaceful? What does it mean to feel peaceful? What does it mean to interact with peace, with other people, with nature? And how is that quality of peace connected to the understanding and experience of the soul as a point of eternal energy? So when I slow down my thinking and really start to connect with that inner light, the soul, and then start to, from that connection with the self, to explore these qualities, then they start to generate very deep experiences within. And it's easy actually, as we get experienced on the journey of practicing meditation, to just look at these words and they become sort of almost so familiar that they appear to lose their meaning. And of course, it's understanding for myself that words are a poor translation of the experience of what these words are pointing towards. So it's only by actually spending really a decent amount of time each day in introspection and silence, really patiently. And I think patience, as they say, is a virtue. It's the one that's remembered in the slogan, patience is a virtue. Patience is such an important quality, because I often notice when I'm moving into meditation from being connected to life and what's happening in the day, there's often a sense of pace and rush and frustration and agitation because of interacting with the world today, which is in a very different energetic space, a very different paradigm from being connected with the soul. So I have to allow myself quite a lot of time, breathing space to settle down. We can end up trying to rush meditation and just really skirting along the surface of the meaning of these concepts, the meaning of these words. and not really experimenting and exploring what it actually means to be a peaceful soul. For instance, when I started to explore peace more deeply in terms of the connection with the soul as a point of light, I started to realize that peace wasn't just the concept of the feeling and the experience of being calm, but it's an extremely vibrant, active energy that really brings a huge sense of well-being. And it also brings within it many other qualities. And these are just things that are coming to mind now. Many things will come, but generosity of spirit is when I truly feel peaceful. There's a desire to share that experience with others because it's such a beautiful experience to feel peaceful. And especially these days, it's sort of more and more elusive because of the pace of life and for most people. So there's so much to explore, even after 18 years, there's always newness in exploring these simple foundational virtues. So I know I spent quite a lot of time just talking about that because the steps are good, but it's really the foundations. It's really going back to the basics. And I think at this time, simplicity, not focusing on too much within our meditations, going back to the basics is really important because the world is so complex. Our lives are so chaotic on the whole. There's a lot of beauty in patience, simplicity, space for silence, space for reflection. And my take is that if I'm not creating those, if I'm not prioritizing time for that in my day, then things are just going to get more and more difficult in life. You will see it as time progresses, and we're seeing it already. There'll be more and more interest in the practice of meditation, and people will be more and more drawn to it because life is actually moving away from that. It's moving into more chaos, and the support systems that most people are relying on for relaxation, for sense of self, for sense of self-respect, self-esteem, self-confidence, just will continue to work less and less well. And it sounds tragic, which in a way it is, but it's also benevolent in that it actually pushes us back towards where we need to be. So a bit about the foundations. The next big thing is we can't do it on our own. Some humility in accepting that although we have this intrinsic goodness inside of us, and we have these beautiful qualities, that we've reached a state of disempowerment where we've lost our pure power. And in Raj Yoga, this is where the Supreme Soul, God, comes into play. Again, very pragmatic role as the one who purifies us, and that is that helps us to clean out all the rubbish we've accumulated in terms of identifying with the body, identifying with the roles we're playing in life, we're identifying with our own life, this life we're in now too much. identifying with the people we connect with, everything to do with identity being outside of who we really are. And this is a very disempowered state that creates a lot of pain, because everything we're interacting with on the outside is very unreliable, very chaotic. Other people are by and large struggling themselves. So if we try and take our sense of stability, our sense of peace, our sense of happiness, our sense of love from anything outside of ourselves, then we're going to be pretty consistently disappointed, let down, dismayed, hurt. So connecting inside, connecting with myself as a soul, but I also need help from the Supreme Soul. And the Supreme Soul, God, is a soul like we are, eternal like we are, a tiny point of conscious energy like we are. The main difference is with this soul that it never goes through the cycle of birth and death as a human being. So it never gets pulled into those traps of what we call body consciousness, which is when we start to over-identify with the outside world for our sense of who we are. What's basically happened that at some point we all come from the same realm in which the Supreme Soul lives, which we tend to refer to as simply the soul world, which is a non-physical space. It's our original home. It's where all souls come from. And unlike the Supreme Soul, we come down to experience ourselves as human beings. And we have these wonderful five senses of the body, sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing. And over time, we get so enamored by this wonderful experience, as it is for most of our time down here, that we lose touch with that internal connection of who we really are. We start to make connections outside with other people and things, and we forget who we are. And the thing about everything outside is that it's all temporary, whether it's relationships, whether it's nature, it's always changing. So gradually over time, being too connected with this stuff, we start to take on that feeling of instability, insecurity, comparing ourselves with others, and it erodes these five qualities. It erodes the experience of these five qualities. It disempowers us. So actually the Supreme Soul acts as a reference where we can really draw on that beautiful, pure power of the soul, and that understanding that it's a very pragmatic view of God, because this soul, unlike maybe some of the more dogmatic beliefs, this soul actually, the Supreme Soul, God, has zero negativity. So this soul only experiences love for us. We're totally loved by this soul, and this soul loves each and every soul. And this soul sees the truth of every soul and can see what's happened on the journey for that soul as their behavior has moved away from these qualities, how that happened, but safe in the knowledge that ultimately all souls will return to that state of purity, of goodness. So seeing us as we truly are is able to uplift us and enable us to embark and sustain us on the journey of returning to a state of purity. So it's hard for me to understand how else to make progress in life these days. You know, in the West, we spent quite a lot of time skirting around the issue of God. I don't know how moving forward in these times, how it will be possible to sustain oneself in a way where you feel any sort of peace or contentment without this connection with the Supreme Soul. So I would say for a modern day atheist, it's going to get very difficult. And I would say there's nothing to lose by exploring this connection with the self and the Supreme Soul in this way because it's completely positive. So even if I don't believe it, then if I explore it, there's nothing to lose apart from the investment in the time. And I know from my own experience that very quickly, that if I practice regularly, then I'll start to see results within myself that I'll know are true and are real. If I'm someone who already has a faith in God through a religious practice, then that is definitely not something I need to give up. My experience of teaching the course to right from atheists through all different religions is that it enriches the experience, whatever my faith is. It doesn't have to replace it. There's no competing going on. This is what I mean a little bit by pragmatic. So it would make sense, right, that if this really is God that we're connecting to, that it's just going to add beauty to whatever is happening in my life and guide me in the right direction. So again, something that's covered much more in depth in the course. So I want to leave a bit of time for questions. So I'm going to go through the 7 steps pretty quickly. Before I do that, one thing in terms of as I learn to connect with myself as a soul and the Supreme Soul, and just a point on that, we'll do a meditation at the end. How do I actually connect to the Supreme Soul? On a very simple level, when I started meditating and imagining myself as a soul, point of light, I simply used to imagine the Supreme Soul was up in some, naturally the feeling is it's upwards, it's a non-physical space, but that I would connect with God, the Supreme Soul in the soul world, imagining this point of light surrounded by a beautiful world of light. And I would literally just see myself as a point of light, see the Supreme Soul as a point of light in front of me. And just, again, really, first of all, connecting with myself in meditation as a peaceful soul. We were talking about earlier, connecting with the qualities. And then naturally, as I start to do that, it's a bit like tuning in a radio. You know, at the moment, we're sort of tuned into the outside world most of the time, which is very chaotic and noisy. Maybe Radio 1's a good example, I don't know. And the Supreme Soul's sort of broadcasting more on classic FM. So I need to change the dial of my consciousness. So when I'm meditating, connecting to my own qualities, and I'm also thinking about this very benevolent soul who really wants to help me. So I start to tune in to a more peaceful state of mind and naturally start to feel that energy connection between myself and the Supreme Soul. The difference is that the Supreme Soul's power of purity, which enables a foundation to enable the experience of these qualities, is so unlimited that it's a bit like being recharged, but recharged with these qualities. So it really enhances, probably not a strong enough word, really enriches, empowers the experience of the qualities. If I just try and do it on my own, it can work for a while. I'll definitely see some improvements. That's my experience, because I sort of avoided the God thing for a little bit of time when I was practicing Raj Yoga at first. But really, to make progress is to connect to this benevolent soul that wants to help me. And one of the things is also, I said, experimenting with the qualities. With my connection with the Supreme Soul, I really need to see the connection with that soul as a relationship. And if you think about it, I'm always relating to souls anyway. I just got used to seeing souls as bodies rather than souls. When I'm interacting with other human beings, they're all souls actually. So although the Supreme Soul doesn't have a body, it's the same principle. The Supreme Soul is a real personality. The personality is in the soul. It's a pure personality. It's a perfect personality. It's a personality that really wants to help me. So one of the natural relationships to start with is one of friendship. Some people prefer to think of it more of a relationship of mother and child, father and child, or teacher or mentor, but really exploring the relationship and having a conversation in my mind with that soul about the qualities. And I think one of the interesting things is connecting the qualities together. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on this. Purity is the foundation. And what we mean by purity is when we think of something pure, it's completely clean. So this concept that we've accumulated a lot of rubbish in the mind, in the soul over time, we've accumulated a lot of misinformed ideas about who we are, what our purpose is in the world. So all that junk, to clean all that out, to return to that state of cleanliness. On top of that foundation, then I can start to experience what it means to be peaceful. Because if you're living in a pile of junk, it's not a peaceful feeling. It's distracting. It's just not nice. It's not conducive to feeling peaceful. So again, exploring how these qualities interact. For instance, the reason we have this order on the screen is that if I'm not feeling peaceful, if I'm not experiencing peace, it's very difficult to experience love. And love, you might want to interchange that with self-respect, because love gets mixed up with all sorts of like romantic notions. But love in terms of loving the self, first of all. If I'm not feeling peaceful, if there's not that sense of deep peace, then it's difficult to develop that sense of self-respect consistently, because if there isn't peace, if I'm disturbed inside by what's happening outside, by my own thoughts, then it's very difficult to cultivate loving feelings. But once I do that, love can grow, a sense of self-respect, and naturally then joy or happiness initially starts to emerge from that. If I'm feeling, imagine playing with this idea, I'm feeling peaceful, I'm feeling a sense of respect for the self, being in touch with who I really am as a soul, not dependent on roles or what other people say about me or think about me or my performance at work or blah, blah, blah. But I have this internal reference of peace, of self-respect. Then happiness naturally will start to grow from that. And, maybe instead of waking up every morning, thinking, oh God, not another day, then enthusiasm starts to grow, because from the experience of peace, love, self-respect, happiness, then there's a natural fertile ground for enthusiasm to grow, that a sense of purpose, a sense of wanting to progress, wanting to get better for myself. And then from that actually is born the real sense of generosity, of wanting to serve others, of wanting other people to have this experience of who they are and to experience their own inequalities. And then this becomes a positive cycle of pure power that then inspires me to work on really cleaning, becoming completely pure. It inspires me to go further into what peace means, and so on and so forth. So again, there's so much to explore within these qualities. And also, as well as sort of thinking about it myself, is gradually to start having this internal conversation with the Supreme Soul. just like you chat to a friend about something you're really interested in, or also in terms of seeing the Supreme Soul as your teacher, like asking questions. Doesn't mean you're going to hear some sort of booming voice answering back. But what does happen, I find, is you get inspirations that can come in the sense of feelings that sort of answer your question in different ways. Just from, it can be a sense of clarity that I get in terms of what I'm doing in the day. It can be something that comes through an interaction with someone else. But if I really work on this relationship with the Supreme Soul, I start to get all the answers I need to really start to understand and experience who I am. And who I am is something very wonderful. And that's true of all of us. So that then helps me to move forward in life and help others too. So, it's 25 to 8. I'd like to stop questions in about 10 minutes. I said I would go through the 7 steps fairly quickly. And it's something, again, that you can explore more for yourself. If anybody wants these slides, you're very welcome to them. Just reach out through Jyoti or Harika, or any of the team. I'm happy to share them. So I guess one of the things is that after this wonderful period of honeymoon period of connecting with myself as a soul, connecting with the Supreme Soul, is a sort of framework for how do I sustain my own growth in life. How do I sustain moving towards purity and deepening the experiences? Because there's definitely a feeling of, or human nature of sort of this thing of novelty. And when novelty wears off, then the real work begins. So, I can do the course and think, oh yeah, this is wonderful. And then of course get out into the real world and it all collapses very quickly. So I need some sort of framework. In the course, we talk about things within the practice of Raj Yoga that can support me on my journey, and we talk about the powers of the soul. And so this is sort of incorporating a few of those ideas. Step 1, and these are not radical ideas. They're very simple, but they're hugely important. And that's why I said the foundations that we've already been talking about are absolutely key to these steps working in an effective way. So the first step is really, I have to work on the discipline of taking time out to meditate every day. The old analogy of, if you just eat once a week, or you try and take one breath a day, you're not going to last very long. And we need to do things consistently to sustain the body. And it's the same with the soul. We need to do things regularly and consistently. So 2 things really is the discipline to take time out to become more silent, to patiently go into meditation and explore some of the things we've been talking about, to be introspective. So the practice of meditation. And the second thing is to become a student of meditation. Raj Yoga is a study and a practice. Meditation is no guarantee of success, is it? Because, most people, when they're meditating, are following the principle of close their eyes and hope for the best. I need the right information on which to meditate on. We talk about meditation sometimes being yoga, because the original meaning of the word yoga is connection or union. And everybody in the world is having yoga all the time. But it's not really Raj Yoga. It's not a dignified connection. it's what is the meaning of yoga? Yoga is where my attention is going. So, I could be having yoga with a boiled egg in the morning at breakfast. It doesn't make it particularly elevated. But it is taking time out to have good quality yoga and that connection with the soul and the supreme soul. And studying, when I say student, the first thing is that we need to study is what is the soul? Who is God? What does God do? What's my relationship to all of that? All of these things. But regular Raja Yoga students also study the Murli, the teachings of God. But there's so much material on the Brahma Kumari's websites in terms of quality information, knowledge that I can meditate on. Guided meditations, where experienced meditators sharing their own exploration and insights. So I really need to take time out to study some very good quality spiritual information every day, as opposed to the news, which is basically a horror film. I need to connect my intellect with good quality, nourishing information. And not just positive thoughts, they're fantastic, but I really need to explore the soul and supreme soul. Not just, I'm happy, I'm confident, but really this connection, this deep connection. Because there are loads of people teaching positive thinking and, all that sort of stuff. And that's great. It's really important. Really, the big difference is really studying in depth, understanding myself as a soul, understanding my connection with God. So this step one actually is an absolute foundation. So I'm spending most time on it because the other 6 steps completely rely on it. And I'm going to go through those really quickly. As I said, you're welcome to the slides anyway. Developing a positive focus. So one thing most of us face in meditation when we first start is that, and probably one of the reasons that most people quit, is that when I sit still, sit down and start to try and become introspective, I just get hit by the state of my own mind, which often is not pretty. So it's important to accept, to let go, to think about a positive thought based on the studies that I'm doing. And that positive thought could be as simple as I am a peaceful soul. And gradually just letting go of all the negative stuff that's there. Understanding that there's not something uniquely wrong with me, that my mind is racing all over the place, that I can't concentrate. And that's normal. That's actually, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't need to meditate. So never to give up thinking, I'm just one of those people that can't meditate. But I need to study more, I need to explore more, and work out how I can develop a positive focus that connects me to who I really am. And then very importantly within this, patience and kindness. Once I develop the power of being patient, of being tolerant, and find that I'm better able to accept what happens in life. I'm more flexible, far-sighted. This creates a lot of stability in the self. Those first steps create a foundation where I start to get clarity, because if I'm doing steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, it creates a natural sense of quietude, of peace in the mind, because they're all about letting go, being patient, slowing down, self-acceptance, not comparing myself with others, tuning out of external influences. And then gradually I start to get clarity. You might want to call it intuition, that's fine, but it's sort of this sense of what's the right thing for me to do in situations. What's the best way forward? It's that sort of clarity that starts to come. Because if I'm relying on information that's coming from outside to make decisions, there's so many conflicting opinions about everything. Everybody's got an opinion about everything. If I don't have some inner sense of my own truth and direction, then I'm going to get lost. This gives me the basis then to be able to act consciously and be courageous. Quite often we see courage as a scary thing that I have to sort of, really sum up inside me. And yeah, that's sometimes true. But the more clarity I have about what steps I need to take, the clarity brings with it a sense of confidence that, okay, I might be trying something new, or I might be going against what most people are doing, but I know it's right and I know it's something I have to do. So this sort of purpose, determination still carries with it the earlier steps of kindness. It's not forceful in the sense of that it goes against what other people around me need, but actually works in harmony with that. And what that enables is for me to contribute with a natural enthusiasm. I don't mean like jumping around and sort of being over the top, but enthusiasm that leads to this power to want to serve, taking responsibility for myself, being generous, being respectful, and humility in the sense of when I'm really sure about who I am, I don't have to prove anything. I'm just very much being myself and being connected with the soul, the supreme soul, really that confidence that being myself is something that's very special and that it allows me to connect with what's special in other people. So it brings about progression in the self, but also others. This is really, I guess, what service is, that we feel very, very good. It's human nature when we contribute to the well-being of others. But for most people these days, we're so blown out by just getting through the day. The glass is really empty, that we can't sometimes conceive of helping others. Not that we don't want to, but we just don't have the power. So again, in meditation, by building up this power, receiving this power from the Supreme Soul allows us to develop this power to be able to not just help ourselves, but naturally help others as well. And then this really just feeds back into itself. And the more I take these steps, particularly step one, and continue to build the power and the experience of the qualities inside me, so it just becomes stronger and stronger. So, yeah, the Supreme Soul, again, just to re-emphasize that it's such an important connection that I'm not on my own. The soul is always there to help me. And there's nothing wrong with talking to the Supreme Soul in your head, or, sometimes out loud. Depends where you are. I often have conversations out loud with God when I'm on my own. It's really, really just see it as a relationship to explore with the perfect friend, the perfect mother, the perfect father, the perfect teacher. And this concept of being on your own that's arisen for you can't rely on another human being for your own well-being, but you can rely on the Supreme Soul, God. So actually, we're never on our own. This concept of you're on your own, there's only you at the end. No, it's not true. We have this great support. And through our connection with the Supreme Soul, that sense of well-being and being able to help others with their well-being is just really is the purpose of life, because it's the purpose of sharing joy, sharing peace, sharing love. And isn't that what it's all about? So I shall leave it there. A little bit of time for questions, I think.
Thank you, Matthew. So yeah, you mentioned about the chaos and the destructive things happening today in the world. So my question to you is, what knowledge is necessary in order to guide our intellect on how to reduce the intensity of the anger, looking at the situations and people suffering all around the world? Sometimes that anger comes up and we feel that's natural. So how do I explain myself? What knowledge is necessary?
That's a really good question. I'm sure everybody can relate to it, which is what makes it a really good question. It really comes down to the simplicity of I can't experience the benevolence of life without a lot of silent time, because I get influenced by what's happening. And the idea is that a lot of what's happening is bad and wrong. And in making that judgment, I pull myself into a negative space, and then I react against that. And it also starts to connect with my own fears about my own safety and security and etc. And then, as you say, anger, or at least frustration, blame, blaming others, pointing the finger outside. I haven't got the power to take responsibility for myself. So the short answer is I need a lot of meditation practice, because that is the only way to develop the power to remain detached, to remain objective about everything. And the knowledge, I think, really, I'd go back to the Raj Yoga course, because it's the foundations, again, the depth of understanding of what it means to be a soul, to connect to the Supreme Soul, and understand in the course, in the intermediate course, is what our journey is and why is this all happening. I think the context of that is really, really important, that it's not just random or bad luck for some, good luck for others, that there is a great wisdom in the drama of life and what's happening, but I need that knowledge to counteract the perspectives that most of us have these days, which is, oh God, this is just bad, and why is it happening?
Thank you. Also, like virus going around, so we all are talking about hygiene. So along with physical hygiene, how can we teach emotional hygiene to our own self and to our family, whether it's children or parents, to tackle the destructive emotions and achieve peace of mind, and then contentment, obviously? So like, what emotional hygiene you will prescribe?
It's interesting, because it goes straight back to purity, right? When we're talking about cleanliness. I don't think we have to worry too much about teaching others. I think that can be that can be interesting. I think the more I connect with myself and become an example of, I think a lot of, for instance, a lot of students of Raj Yoga, new students, probably had the experience of maybe being very enthusiastic about their experience and then trying to go home and tell other people, family or friends about it, and getting blank looks or a look of, oh my God, I lost it. So really the best way to help others is to practice developing my own state of peace, my own state of purity. God is the only one who can purify us. So in terms of emotional hygiene or cleanliness of the soul, again, it comes back to meditation practice. What I've experienced is that then, even if in your relationships that your language isn't perfect in your interactions, the intention changes. So we might say things wrong, but the intention is one to bring peace and harmony, and that comes through in our interactions with others. So I think that's the real answer. Again, it comes down to the only thing that's going to create emotional hygiene, cleanliness, is that stability, that clarity that comes from my own peace of mind. And then that naturally will come through in our interactions with others.
Thank you. There's a question that has come up in the chat box. This is the last question that we'll take up. Intellectually, I can understand all this, but connecting with the Supreme in a simple and pure level is still eluding me. What do you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think it's quite a common thing. I quite often recommend that people do the course again, or study books that are revolving around the course, like New Beginnings, or there's lots of different books available, and also the resources on the website, guided meditations about the connection with the Supreme Soul. I think borrowing from the experience of others. If I'm regularly practicing and really trying to explore my connection with the Supreme Soul, and I don't feel that connection, that it's probably that I need a deeper understanding, more clarity of understanding of who I am as a soul, and the connection with the Supreme Soul, the role of the Supreme Soul, what role God plays in the whole cycle of life. So it's balancing those two things, the study and the practice. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Can I request you now to take us into the experience of guided meditation? Okay.
Yeah, sure. So just sitting comfortably, and you can choose to focus on the point of light in front of you. This is a representation of the soul. This picture is, variations of it are widely available on the web and on the BK Brahmakumari's websites, and I can use it in two ways. I can see it as a spiritual mirror, reflection of the soul in the center of the forehead. And I can also see it as the Supreme Soul, that I'm connecting with, that one, that pure, benevolent soul. the first step is always important to take time to connect with myself as a soul, to tune into that truth. To imagine or see myself as this very beautiful, tiny point of conscious energy behind the eyes. It's sometimes useful, I find, to imagine that as a soul, this consciousness, I'm in a room behind the eyes. And the eyes are the windows that look out of this room. And that sense of being the observer just creates a sense of the self as a soul that's separate from the body. And that in itself is a beautiful thing, because the process of getting lost in who I am and identifying with too many external things is because I've lost my identity in the body. I don't see myself as a soul separate. So just imagine that I'm in a room behind the eyes and I'm looking out at this point of light. And see if you just get a sense of a slightly different awareness from doing that. Within this room also, as well as the windows in front of me, there are two speakers. Two loudspeakers at either side of the room, through which I can hear sounds. Yep. I am the soul. I am separate from the windows. I am separate from the speakers. I am the conscious being. I'm looking out from this awareness, and I'm seeing not through the physical eyes anymore. I'm seeing into a different realm, the realm of the world of souls. I'm looking at the Supreme Soul, at God. There is a deep sense of acceptance. That one's acceptance of me. And just the enjoyment of understanding how much love is behind that acceptance. And just the enjoyment of being, not doing anything. don't have to do anything to be okay. Just taking time to enjoy that connection. And if my mind is distracted somewhere, just gentle, very simple reminder. Oh yeah, I'm the soul in the room behind the eyes. I'm connecting with this one. There's a deep understanding of each other. There's a feeling of being understood. Of seeing, experiencing who I really am beyond thoughts, actually, beyond experiences. The power of that silence and truth is very beautiful. And as I start to bring my attention gently back more, just to being in the room, looking through the physical eyes, looking through the window, and seeing the screen that the image is sat in, being more aware of my physical surroundings. There's that knowledge that I can, and this is inspiring, that I can do this anytime I want. This connection is not relying on where I am, or what time it is, or anything. I have this connection with God, who's with me all the time, realizing that it's only when I move my attention somewhere else that I lose the connection. And knowing that I can choose to reconnect anytime I want, even if I have a minute, half a minute longer when I have the time available, and that I make time, because there's so much beauty to experience in this connection, in this relationship. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. I want to thank you on behalf of the listeners, but myself too, because I enjoyed it and I really liked the way you shared even your experiences and the 7 steps, the way you started. Like, we need to really be in the consciousness that I am that eternal, peaceful soul. And then connecting with the Supreme Soul and the relationship with our virtues and relationship with the Supreme Soul, to make it stronger and to experience the peace and contentment. Thank you for exploring the topic beautifully and answering all our questions. I think none of them have any questions anymore. So thank you so much for the beautiful meditation experience as well. Thank you to the listeners as well. Our next week's topic is Spirituality and the Art of Managing Time. 6th May, that is Friday next week, same time, 7 p.m. And the speaker would be Cherry Stenberg. So wishing and hoping to see you all again. Thank you once again. Om Shanti.